She told herself that it was a good tactic to ask as many questions as she could, especially when feeling uncomfortable, even if she knew the answers. At the age of 15, Vera had already developed a coquettish, sly attitude toward adults, who, she found, could be surprisingly easy to fool. Charlatan. One making especially noisy or showy pretenses to knowledge or ability. Fraud. Mr. King's careful voice seemed disembodied from the solid bald head that glistened in the haze behind the lights. Vera took a deep breath. She was ready. She was alert. She had been preparing all her life to face the challenges of a merciless world. This is nothing, she reminded herself, compared to what's coming. If you're a charlatan, then be a good one. She stated the letters with pride. Charlatan. C-H-A-R-L-A-T-A-N. Charlatan. She turned to take her seat before the head judge even began to say, "That is correct." Applause lifted her like a wave and deposited her in her folding chair. She liked applause. Most charlatans do. A small boy, Arthur Ito, who had all along seemed undefeatable, handling daguerreotype and incunabula easily, approached the microphone, pushed up his glasses, and clasped his hands behind his back. "Erotology," stated Mr. King. The boy squinted. "May I have the language of origin, please?" "The word comes from the Greek," answered Mr. King. Arthur closed his eyes and proceeded without pause. Erotology. A-R-A-T-A-L-O-G-Y. The brief, devastating chime of the misspell bell preceded a few groans from the audience, which, despite lasting mistrust of the Japanese still lingering from the war, was very much on Arthur's side. He pushed up his glasses and walked off with the same blankness of expression he possessed when he spelled correctly, only dropping his head into his hands once he passed into the wings. Vera, motionless and defiant in her folding chair at the back of the stage, allowed herself to look side to side. Only 7 of them left now. She still had a chance, a 14.29% chance. But they were in the final rounds, where the words get treacherous, and the pitfalls were much more sinister than the simple E that had felled Arthur. As she awaited her turn, Vera tried to imagine what life was like for these kids who lived in permanent homes in Minneapolis, San Francisco, Denver. She was both jealous of and curious about the solidarity of their lives, but at the same time assumed that they were exceedingly dull. What were their houses made of? Were they fancy or plain? Did they have long, straight driveways and dogs resting on the living room rugs? Vera sighed in a dismissive way and said to herself, "Tedious children." She spelled the words in her head that felled 2 more contestants. Cathrometer, crepitant, until it came around to a handsome, slender boy, 15 years old like herself, who she'd heard lived in a hotel too. Only he lived in one hotel. This hotel, the palatial Hawthorne in Washington, D.C., only blocks from the White House. His name was Stanley, a strange boy. She didn't know quite what to make of him. He seemed languid and self-effacing, nearly melting into his chair when he sat down. But at the same time, his manner was unbearably aloof and much too confident for a boy his age. The way he loped up to the microphone in his tweed jacket and oversized wingtips, took hold of the microphone, cleared his throat, and leaned down into it as if it wasn't at all an awkward thing to be doing, like he was a professor at a lectern, or a magician. Exactly right, Vera thought. Incorrigible. That's exactly what the boy is. And maybe a little conceited, too. Incorrigiceated. There's a word for him. Incorrigible, Stanley repeated. He spelled it gently, pronouncing each letter as if it were a tender thing, a puppy or a seedling, waited politely for the head judge to affirm that he was correct, although he clearly knew it, said, "Thank you, sir," and turned and walked soundlessly back.